Hi players, bonjour from Paris. My name is Asaf Hirsch and welcome to my channel Easy Board Games. Today we're going to have a review about D.E.I Divide Impera by Tommaso Battista. And since Ludous Magnus Studios, felt a little bit from Gladiator over there, are right now doing a Kickstarter for a new expansion and a reprint, I thought to myself, this will be a pretty good time to have a review. So what is the story of D.E.I? After a frosty apocalypse, nothing really left from the world and there are a few survivors. Some sort of aliens called the purebred are now controlling everything that has left behind. So D.E.I is taking place in post-apocalyptic London, and what we, the factions, are need to do is to complete some missions that the purebred has given us and gather resources from different levels in the game, from the ground floor, from the first one and from the second one, and exchange them for supplies in order for us to continue and survive. So how do we do that? D.E.I is divided into 4 rounds, and the different factions are going to take turns in performing in each round 3 action phases. In each action phase we're going to play 2 cards into our player pad, and we're going to do different things like movement, like enlisting new scrappers, like building different things like bridges, elevators, new refugees. We're going to buy new cards from the different markets and do some other actions that I will let you discover on your own. So let's dive now a little bit deeper. Theme-wise, the game feels really like a race to gather all the different resources. So the movement between the different regions and the fact that you need majority in order to control a region or to control an outpost really boost the feeling that there is some sort of like a superior being that is rushing you in order to get the most resources that you can in a very short period of time. Especially because D.E.I is only 4 rounds and sometimes it feels pretty quick. With a 2-player game, sometimes it even feels a little bit too quick. So I'm guessing that with people that know the game a little bit, a 2-player game can take even sometimes 40 minutes or 45 minutes. With a higher player count, of course, it extends, but you're really far from doing everything that you maybe planned on doing, or exploring all the map, or being in all the regions, in all the different districts. So combining that aspect alongside with the art of the board itself, or the cool cosmetics like you have with the bridges that are laid down between the floors, the movement that you have with the elevators between the ground floor and the first one and then to the second one, all of this really brings you to a situation that the theme has a lot of presence. I would say that there is not a lot of complexity in D.E.I, and the majority of the actions that we can take are pretty simple. We have again this enlist, a movement, building different buildings, and collect. Of course there are some advanced actions, but they're not the main thing in the game. I don't think that it hurts the game. I think that because it's relatively simple, it allows you to have more concentration into the strategic side of the game. I would say that the moment that you understand the anatomy of the board, the different districts, the different regions, what does it mean adjacent regions and why is it different from linked regions, the movement between the ground floor to the first one to the second one, the moment that you understand this anatomy, the game becomes much easier. And I think for this reason, Ludous Magnus Studios need to have a lot of credit for the really good rulebook that they wrote. I think that the rules inside this are only, let's say, 5 pages, and the rest of it is more setup and iconography. But iconography is something that you're getting used to, right? Or you can just use the player aid or the rulebook itself. But I think that in today's scene of board games, it's not so obvious to open a new box, go over the rules 1 or 2 times, and you're like, okay, I'm ready to play. So because it's not so obvious, I think when I read the rulebook, I was like, wow, am I an idiot that I don't understand anything, or did they just write it in a really good way? So maybe there's a little bit in the first, but definitely the second. And Ludous Magnus, if you're seeing this, you're awesome. The game feels really great. The race aspect that you have, the different movements, the area controlling aspect that you have with moving the majority from one place to another one. How controlling outpost is something so slippery, because I'm going to move and have a majority, and then another one is going to control a drone and maybe kill one of the units, but then another one has the possibility or the special ability that if you have two groups and it's like a tie, then actually it counts like you have majority. It goes a lot. I don't want to go too much into this because I will try to keep it a short review, but the game itself feels very good, very competitive. The last thing that I will say before going to the expansion part, because this is why we're here, right, is the materials, like physical materials that are inside the box. So all in all, they're good. I have not too much to complain about. The minis themselves are definitely okay. Sometimes they feel like they're a little bit too small, so it doesn't really matter if there's like figures or meeples. Of course, when you have figures, it's like you feel maybe a little bit better, or the game looks a little bit better, but because of their size, it doesn't change a lot. Especially when you... So I would say that maybe I would like them to be a little bit bigger, but at the same time, I understand that if you're populating a specific region with a lot of scrappers, maybe it will be too difficult to have so many scrappers in the same place if they would be a little bit bigger. The only thing that I would like to see bigger, for sure, because it would help with the game itself, is to have at least the leader a little bit different, maybe even a different shade of that specific color, or a little bit bigger or something, because when you have so many units on the board, and to recognize the leader, because the difference is so small, it's a little bit difficult. All in all, it's not so problematic, because you, like I did right here, is I just painted the base of that leader in black or something else, so it will be much easier to recognize the leader when it's on the board. But the drone minis feel really good. If you're going to paint them, that they will look even more awesome, but they're like in good quality. They have these small standees, or they're just flat on the ground, and they look really good. The district themselves, all the districts are made from relatively a heavy carton, so when the game sits on the table, in previous videos I said that when you have a carton that it looks like this and it's not straight on the table, it's not so comfortable. But the districts themselves are really sitting nicely on the table, and there's not a lot of movement, let's say random movement, so everything stays in place. The faction pads is where things are starting to be a little bit annoying, because it's supposed to be dual layered, but they're a little bit far from fulfilling, let's say, their destiny. For me, when you have something that is a dual layered, it means that this thing will be straight on the table. When I'm putting something in it, it's going to be like interlocked inside, it's not going to move. And the problem is that in this case, the faction boards are like one layer, and then like a piece of, let's say, a little bit of a thicker paper is like glued behind them. So there's like a little bit of a bump. Things don't really sit nicely on the table. Every small movement is going to move everything on it. It's not crazy because we don't have a lot of things on it, and the cubes, for example, of the outpost sits well, but the leader carton itself is not so good. And for me, it would have been even better if it would be just like one layer of paper, like the markets that we have. I don't think it would have changed so much. Maybe even will take cost a little bit down, but already you're doing something that is supposed to be dual layered, then do it dual layered, right? But undoubtedly the biggest disappointment that I had is with the box itself. Now, maybe it's not so new for you, but the thing is that after you assembled all the districts and you have everything and you want to put it back in the box, we have a problem. Because with the insert that we can say Ludous Magnus have put inside the box, it doesn't sit all well together. And when you want to, this feeling when you're like closing a box and it doesn't closes all the way down, and you're like, what the fluff did I do wrong? Why it doesn't fit all inside? And then you have to open and try to rearrange, and then you have like another mini game, but an annoying one, of arranging everything in the box. But in this case, you understand that it's not your fault because things just don't go well together inside. So what I did, for example, is just take out the insert completely, but even then you need to take like specific districts and lay them down facing each other in a specific way, and only then everything is like fitting well inside. So I'm not expecting, and of course I'm not talking about the expansions going into the core box. This is out of the question. So of course I don't expect something like a big box here like you have with maybe Anachrony or the legendary box that Scythe has or something like that. I would say make like a little bit of a bigger box, a little bit deeper. This box is already a little bit big, then just a little bit more in order to have everything inside. It reminds me, for example, the Great Wall by Awakened Realms, that you're like, guys, your game is called the Great Wall. How come the wall doesn't go inside the box? Why do you need to like dismantle and then put again together every time? It's like a little bit weird. But in this case, I needed to do some, let's say, module a little bit the inside in order for everything to fit well. So this is, I would say, is the biggest disappointment that I have material-wise. So let's cut to the chase and talk about the expansions. The first expansion that I got was the White Death expansion that actually brings the solo aspect to this game. It's a very solid solo game, and I enjoy it quite a lot. And it doesn't have to be for solo. It adds more content also if you want to play with like for multiplayer. But this is a pretty solid solo experience. The second expansion that I got was Old London that I have over here. Now I'm not so sure if you can see with the light, but this is still under shrink. I didn't touch it yet, and I'll soon explain why. The other two, let's say not expansions really, I mean besides the cool resources that they have over here, are the two mercenaries that we have, which are Penny Boom and Max. So this is just, let's say, something small that can add a little bit to the game. It's not crazy like the other expansions, of course. And there's another expansion that's called the Citadel, which I, to be honest with you, didn't bother to take, not because it's not good. And now let me explain to you why I didn't open it yet. In the core game, you have so much replayability. I'm going to have another video about replayability itself, but let's just concentrate on D.E.I. Has so much replayability, and even in the rulebook they're like, okay, if you're already comfortable with this, then you should try this and this. Do you want to increase, I don't know, like being more competitive? Then let's add this and this. You want like this? Then there's a lot of small things that you can change that add a lot to the game already. So of course the White Death, if you're a solo player, then this is a must for you, and of course if you enjoy D.E.I. But I don't know about the other two expansions, the Citadel and the Old London. It's all about basically, and it's I think like this with every expansion, how soon or how often, I'm sorry, do you table this specific game? Okay, if you have, if you're going to table D.E.I. once per month or something like that, I think that you have a lot of already replayability in the core box. If you find yourself that you're tabling this game time after time after time, and your group or just yourself, you're like, okay, then let's add something new, let's add more modes or more modules, or let's change things a little bit, then yeah, for sure. But that would have been almost my advice to you every time when you have a game that you table a lot. Of course, if the core game is good and the expansion is going to add and bring some new things, yeah, get the expansion. If you're not tabling D.E.I. a lot, I'm not so sure I would have done it. So let's now talk about the Kickstarter that they have. I'll be honest with you, I didn't bother so much to check what is the expansion all about, so I cannot tell you get it or not. I would assume that it's like other expansions. If you're going to play it a lot, get it. If not, then don't. But for the reprint, if you don't have Divide Impera, then I do think you should take it. Of course, if you're to area control majority, this really hits the sweet spot, even with a lower player count, which I think for area control games, 2 players is sometimes a little bit awkward, but Divide Impera for 2 players is awesome. So for 3 and 4 players, even more, the experience is going to be much better. Guys, thank you so much for watching. If you learned something new, if you saw something that you like, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, comment and like the video. This is a completely free way to support this channel. As always, take care. See you next time.